Only a few hours left, and what's about to happen tonight is not ordinary. It's divine. Something supernatural is being released into the atmosphere, and it's headed straight for your house. Someone from heaven is trying to reach you. A message. A sign. A breakthrough. You felt the tension. The pull. The unexplainable stirring in your spirit. That's not random, it's holy. Tonight, something is shifting. Angels have been dispatched. Your prayers have been heard. Heaven is moving toward you. Don't miss this moment. Stay with me, because in the next few moments, you'll understand why this message found you right now. 2222 Stay grounded. Your peace is being restored. What once felt chaotic is aligning into calm. Trust the process. Type 2222 to affirm stability and divine order. 3333 Your angels are surrounding you with divine protection and power. You are not alone in this season. Miracles are unfolding. Type 3333 to affirm divine support. 4444 You are on solid ground. The foundation you're building is blessed. What you've prayed for is being formed behind the scenes. Type 4444 to claim your divine security. 5555 Major positive change is coming. What once seemed delayed is about to be delivered. A breakthrough is on the horizon. Type 5555 to declare transformation. 6666 Focus inward. You're being realigned with your purpose. Let go of overthinking. It's time to trust your inner guidance. Type 6666 to affirm spiritual balance. 7777 You are walking into divine favor. Doors that were shut are now opening with ease. You are in perfect alignment. Type 7777 to affirm favor and increase. 8888 Abundance is yours. Not just financially, but in peace, love, and blessings. You're entering a harvest season. Type 8888 to receive overflow. 9999 This chapter is closing with grace, and the new one is rich with promise. Your next season will be filled with clarity and joy. Type 9999 to welcome new beginnings. The process of refinement and trust. As we walk through life, trust becomes a continuous process of refinement. It's not a one-time decision, but an ongoing journey where we learn to lean more on God and less on our own understanding. In the process, we are shaped and transformed. The challenges, difficulties, and trials that we face are often the very tools God uses to refine our hearts and strengthen our trust in Him. Refinement is never easy. It often comes through discomfort, pain, and confusion, but these are the moments that build a deep, unshakable trust in God. Just as gold is refined through fire, so too are we refined in the fires of life. As the impurities are burned away, what remains is stronger and purer. In our moments of vulnerability, when we feel like everything is falling apart, God is often doing His most profound work. He is teaching us to rely not on our own strength but on His. He is helping us understand that our weakness makes room for His power to shine. It's through these moments of trial that we often grow the most, and we emerge from them with a deeper understanding of God's character and faithfulness. The process of refinement is never a quick fix. It's often slow and incremental, but the fruit it bears is long-lasting. With each step, we become more reliant on God, more patient, and more attuned to His voice. Trusting God in the process means allowing Him to have His way, even when it feels uncomfortable or uncertain. Letting go of control. A significant part of trusting God is surrendering our desire to control everything. Our world tells us to take charge of our destiny, make things happen, and plan every detail. However, true faith involves letting go of control and trusting God to guide our steps, even when we don't have the blueprint. When we try to control our lives, we often find ourselves exhausted, anxious, and frustrated because we were never meant to carry that weight. Letting go of control doesn't mean being passive. It means actively trusting that God is in control, and we don't need to worry about what's next. It's about releasing our need for certainty and embracing the unknown with confidence in God's goodness. This doesn't mean we don't plan or make wise decisions. Rather, it means we allow God to have the final say in our lives. It's about acknowledging that our understanding is limited, but God's wisdom is infinite. When we surrender control to God, we make space for His perfect plan to unfold. The gift of patience and trusting God. Patience is an often overlooked virtue in our fast-paced world, yet it is one of the most significant qualities we must develop when learning to trust God. Patience is not just waiting, it's how we wait. It's about trusting God's timing, even when everything inside us wants to rush ahead. God knows what we need and when we need it. In the waiting, He is teaching us to lean on Him, to trust that He has a purpose for every moment. Patience and trust allows us to endure the storms without losing hope. It helps us remain steadfast, even when the circumstances seem overwhelming or when the promises seem delayed. While we wait, God is working, even if we can't see it. The process may take longer than we would like, but God's delays are not denials. His plans unfold in perfect timing. Patience allows us to remain faithful, trusting that God is not only with us during the waiting but is also preparing us for what lies ahead. Embracing God's peace in the waiting. In seasons of uncertainty or waiting, we may feel like peace is a distant concept. The world's circumstances may seem to scream stress, anxiety, and worry, but God offers a peace that surpasses all understanding. This peace doesn't depend on our circumstances, but on the reality that God is in control, and He has already gone before us. As we trust God, His peace becomes a foundation that steadies us when the world around us is shaking. God's peace doesn't promise an absence of challenges, but it assures us that in the midst of those challenges, He is with us. This peace is not based on what we see, but on the knowledge that God is working things out for our good, and that we are never alone. We may not always feel this peace, especially when the waiting is long and the path ahead is unclear, but God's peace is available to us at all times. It's a peace that doesn't come from our circumstances but from our trust in His goodness. When we choose to rest in this peace, it quiets our anxieties and allows us to move forward with confidence, knowing that God is in control. The strength found in trusting God through trials and difficulties often bring us face to face with our deepest fears and insecurities. In these moments, trusting God can feel incredibly hard, especially when it seems like things are falling apart. However, it's through these very trials that we often experience the greatest transformation. God uses trials to strengthen our faith, to refine our character, and to teach us to depend on Him. What feels like an unbearable burden can become the very thing that leads to our breakthrough. When we walk through the fire, we are purified, and our trust in God becomes stronger. In the midst of trials, it's important to remember that God never wastes pain. He doesn't promise that we will never face hardship, but He does promise that He will be with us through it all. As we trust Him through the storm, we discover a strength and resilience we never knew we had. The trials we face may not make sense at the time, but in retrospect, we often see how God was using them to build us up. What may feel like a setback can actually be the very thing God uses to set us up for something greater. Trusting God with our dreams and desires. Many of us have dreams and desires for our lives, goals we hope to achieve, relationships we long to have, and plans we want to fulfill. Yet, there are times when those dreams seem far away or even impossible. In those moments, it's essential to remember that trusting God with our dreams means allowing His will to guide us, even when we don't fully understand how it will all unfold. Trusting God with our dreams doesn't mean we don't pursue them. It means we surrender them to Him, knowing that He can bring them to fruition in His perfect time. Sometimes, our dreams may look different from what we initially imagined, but that doesn't mean they are any less significant. God's plans for us are always better than anything we could dream up on our own. In the waiting, we are invited to trust that God's dreams for us are bigger and better than our own. His vision for our lives is far more expansive than anything we could create on our own. As we trust Him, we allow Him to shape our desires and dreams, aligning them with His will. 0000 God is resetting everything in your favor. Fresh starts are being handed to you. Watch what happens when you let Him lead. Type 0000 to receive the divine reset. 1010 Divine timing is at work. The delays weren't denials, they were setups for something better. Type 1010 to trust the timing of God. 1212 You are being upgraded spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Your energy is shifting for the better. Type 1212 to align with this elevation. 1313 What you're going through is birthing strength. You're not breaking, you're becoming. Type 1313 to affirm your transformation. 1414 The support you need is coming. Unexpected help, resources, and connections are already on the way. Type 1414 to claim divine assistance. 1515 That thing you've been praying about? God heard you. He's moving in ways you can't yet see. Type 1515 to affirm divine response. 1616 Your spirit is awakening. You're rising above what used to keep you stuck. It's your time now. Type 1616 to confirm your spiritual rise. 1717 You're being noticed in the spirit. What was hidden will now be honored. God is highlighting you for your obedience. Type 1717 to affirm your divine recognition. 1818 A financial shift is coming. Where there was lack, there will now be provision. Expect divine deposits. Type 1818 to receive unexpected blessings. 1919 The past is no longer your prison. You're being released into healing, hope, and happiness. Type 1919 to step into freedom. 2020 This year still holds miracles for you. God hasn't forgotten a single promise. Type 2020 to walk in expectation and divine fulfillment. 2121 You're not behind. You're being set up for a divine catch-up. Everything will come together quickly and beautifully. Type 2121 to declare your alignment. 2323 There's divine favor on your name. What you touch will flourish. Get ready to receive honor where you were once overlooked. Type 2323 to affirm your favor. 2424 angelic forces are working overtime for your protection and elevation. You are covered. Type 2424 to agree with God's shield around you. 2525 change is here, and it's good. You will not lose anything meant for you. Only greater things are being released. Type 2525 to trust the shift. 2626 your patience is producing powerful results. While you wait, God is working. What's coming is better than what you expected. Type 2626 to affirm trust. 2727 spiritual insight and wisdom are increasing. Your discernment is unlocking doors and protecting your path. Type 2727 to affirm divine wisdom. 2828 you're entering a season of double blessings. For every hardship, God is returning joy twice over. Type 2828 to claim your double portion. 2929 you are breaking generational limits. A new legacy begins with you. You are chosen for such a time as this. Type 2929 to affirm your calling. 3030 God is multiplying what little you had into more than enough. Miraculous multiplication is here. Type 3030 to receive divine provision. 3131 you're about to be surprised with something beautiful. A dream you forgot is about to be fulfilled. Type 3131 to receive your blessing. 3232 you're walking in the light of God's plan. Every step forward is divinely guided. Don't fear, just move. Type 3232 to walk boldly with faith. The foundation of trust in God's unfailing love. Trusting in God begins with understanding the depth and constancy of His love for us. The foundation of our trust is not built on what we can do, but on who God is and how He loves us unconditionally and completely. God's love is steadfast and unchanging, regardless of our circumstances or our performance. When we fully grasp that God loves us beyond measure, it becomes easier to trust Him with every part of our lives. God's love is not earned through actions or achievements. It is given freely, lavished upon us every single day. Even in our mistakes, failures, and moments of doubt, His love remains constant. This kind of love is unlike anything we experience from the world. It is not conditional, based on our behavior or actions, but is rooted in His nature. When we begin to trust in God's love, it changes the way we view ourselves, our situations, and our future. The unshakable nature of God's love provides the courage to take steps of faith, even when we feel unworthy or incapable. When we truly believe that God's love will never fail us, we are able to step into the unknown with peace, knowing that He holds us securely in His hands. Trusting God means trusting that His love is sufficient for us, and that it will carry us through every circumstance, no matter how difficult it may seem. In moments of struggle, when our trust is tested, remembering God's love helps us to hold on. It reminds us that He is not only with us, but that He is for us, fighting on our behalf. When we lean into His love, we find strength to endure and the confidence to trust that He will see us through. The invitation to trust beyond our understanding. A critical part of walking in trust is recognizing that God's ways are not always our ways, and His understanding far exceeds ours. There will be moments in life where we cannot see the full picture, where the path ahead seems unclear and the outcome uncertain. It is in these moments that trust becomes vital. Trusting God beyond our understanding means surrendering our need for control and choosing to walk by faith rather than by sight. We are often tempted to rely on our own logic, to demand explanations, or to search for quick answers when we face uncertainty. However, God invites us to trust in His wisdom, even when we cannot see how everything fits together. Faith is not the absence of doubt or questions, but the willingness to trust God even when we don't have all the answers. It is a deep belief that God's plans are good, and that He is working for our benefit, even in situations where we can't yet see the outcome. This kind of trust requires humility, acknowledging that we do not know everything and that, in fact, God knows far better than we do. When we trust beyond our understanding, we open ourselves up to receive more of God's guidance. It is through these moments of uncertainty that God teaches us to lean on His wisdom and discernment. Instead of relying on our own insight, we learn to trust His perfect knowledge and timing. Trust in the seasons of waiting. One of the most challenging seasons in life can be the season of waiting. It's the time when we are waiting for a breakthrough, a change, or a decision. The temptation is to grow weary, to lose hope, or to try to make things happen on our own. But waiting is not a wasted season. It is a time of growth, preparation, and trust building. God often uses waiting seasons to deepen our trust in Him. Waiting forces us to release our need for instant gratification and to align ourselves with God's perfect timing. During the waiting, we are invited to rest in His promises and trust that He is preparing us for something greater than we could have imagined. In the waiting, God is not inactive. He is working behind the scenes, aligning circumstances, and preparing hearts for what's to come. Even though we may not see immediate results, waiting is a time of preparation, refinement, and trust. God uses these seasons to shape us, refine our character, and build our endurance. Trusting God in the waiting means allowing ourselves to be content in the present moment, even as we hope for the future. It is about trusting that, while the wait may seem long, God is working all things for our good. And when the time is right, He will reveal His plans in the most beautiful and fulfilling way. The courage to trust God in the face of fear can be one of the greatest obstacles to trusting God. The unknowns of life, the possibility of failure, or the fear of loss can make us hesitate to fully step into what God has for us. However, courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to trust God even in the midst of it. Trusting God in the face of fear involves acknowledging our fears without letting them control us. It's about bringing our anxieties to God and surrendering them to His care. God does not promise that we won't experience fear, but He does promise that He will be with us in it. Courage comes from knowing that God is stronger than our fears and that His presence will carry us through. In the moments when fear tries to take hold, we can choose to trust God's perfect love, which casts out fear. When we focus on God's faithfulness and goodness, fear begins to lose its grip on us. Trusting God with our fears means choosing to believe that His plans for us are greater than anything we fear. Fear often arises from our limited perspective. We cannot see the full picture, and that uncertainty leads to fear. But when we trust that God sees the whole picture, we can have confidence that His plan for us is better than anything we could have imagined, and that He will protect us every step of the way. Trusting God with our future, it is natural to wonder about the future, what lies ahead, what decisions we will have to make, and what challenges we may face. But trusting God with our future means releasing our anxieties and fears about tomorrow into His hands. The future is not ours to control, but it is His to guide. God, in His infinite wisdom, already knows the future. He has a plan for each of us, a plan that is full of hope, purpose, and promise. When we trust God with our future, we acknowledge that He holds every day in His hands, and He will provide for us, lead us, and equip us for whatever comes. Trusting God with our future also means living with open hands. Instead of holding on tightly to our own plans or dreams, we offer them to God, asking Him to guide us into His will. Sometimes this means making difficult decisions, stepping out in faith, and following God even when we don't know where He is leading us. Trusting God with our future allows us to live without fear of the unknown because we know that He is already there, preparing the way. Even when the road ahead seems unclear, we can trust that He is directing our steps and that His plan will unfold in His perfect time. The power of trusting in God's timing. One of the hardest aspects of trust is waiting for the right time. We often want things to happen quickly, whether it's a promotion, a change in circumstances, or a breakthrough in a relationship. But God's timing is always perfect, and trusting in His timing is a key part of growing in faith. God's timing is not our timing, and His ways are not our ways. We may feel like we are ready for something now, but God knows the right moment for everything. Trusting in God's timing requires patience and a willingness to wait for Him to make things happen according to His perfect plan. When we trust in God's timing, we release the pressure to rush or force things. We allow Him to work in His own time, knowing that He is preparing us for what lies ahead. God's timing is never late, and it is never early. It is always right on time. Trusting Him means believing that He will bring about what is best for us at just the right time. Walking in the light of God's faithfulness as we continue to trust God, it's important to remember His faithfulness in the past. God has been faithful in our lives, even when we couldn't see it or understand it. His faithfulness is unchanging, and as we reflect on all He has done for us, we are reminded that He will continue to be faithful in the future. The more we reflect on God's faithfulness, the more our trust in Him grows. Each step we take in faith is built on the foundation of His past faithfulness. When we remember how He has provided, guided, and protected us in the past, we can move forward in confidence, knowing that He will do it again. God's faithfulness is a constant source of encouragement and strength. As we trust in Him, we can be confident that He will never fail us and that He will always be with us, guiding us every step of the way. One of the most profound lessons in the journey of trusting God is understanding that our weakness does not disqualify us from His care or from walking in His plan. In fact, our weakness is often the place where God's strength shines the brightest. It is in the moments when we feel inadequate, when we struggle to keep moving forward, that God's power is made perfect in us. Trusting God in our weakness means acknowledging that we are not enough on our own, but that He is more than sufficient to meet our needs. Our limitations allow room for God to show Himself strong in ways we cannot imagine. When we are weak, God is strong. It is in those moments of vulnerability that we truly learn to depend on God, and in doing so, we experience His sustaining grace in a way that we never could in our strength alone. Sometimes, we fear that God will abandon us in our moments of weakness, but the opposite is true. It is precisely when we feel at our lowest that He draws closest to us. In our weakness, He meets us with compassion, with understanding, and with His all-sufficient grace. Trusting God in times of weakness involves surrendering our need to control everything and embracing the truth that His grace is enough for us, no matter what we face. When we trust God in our weakness, we come to understand that His power is not about our ability to be strong, but about His ability to work through us despite our frailties. We can rest in the fact that God has never called us to be perfect, but to trust Him to be the strength we need in every situation. Living a life of obedience and trusting God is not just about believing that He will provide or protect us. It is also about following His lead, obeying His commands, and choosing His will over our own. True trust in God is reflected in our obedience to Him. We show that we trust Him by walking in His ways, even when we don't understand the full picture or when His direction doesn't align with our plans. Obedience is not always easy. It can require sacrifice, courage, and sometimes waiting. But when we obey God, we show that we believe He knows what's best for us. Obedience is an act of trust because it says to God, "I trust that your way is better than my own." In times of doubt, when we may feel unsure about the next step, God calls us to trust Him and follow His guidance, knowing that His path will lead us to a place of peace and fulfillment. Obedience often leads us to experiences of deeper trust, because as we follow God's will, we see His faithfulness unfold before us in ways that build our confidence in Him. It is through trusting God and obeying His word that we experience the fullness of His blessings. Obedience brings peace, knowing that we are aligned with God's purpose for our lives. Trusting God with obedience is an invitation to walk in freedom, because we know that when we follow His direction, we are walking in the safest, most rewarding path. The power of trusting God in the face of rejection and disappointment. Life often brings unexpected challenges, and one of the hardest to bear can be rejection or disappointment. When others reject us or when our plans don't come to fruition, it can feel like a deep blow to our hearts. But it is in these moments that we are invited to trust God more deeply. Trusting God in the face of rejection means understanding that His love for us is not defined by the opinions of others. People may fail us, they may misunderstand us, or they may walk away, but God will never abandon us. God's love is not contingent upon human acceptance or approval. In moments of rejection, we can find comfort in knowing that we are loved deeply and perfectly by the Creator of the universe. Disappointment often comes when things don't go as we planned. We may feel discouraged when our hopes are dashed or when we don't see the results we expected. But it is precisely in these moments of unmet expectations that God calls us to trust Him for the bigger picture. His plans are greater than our own, and sometimes the things we think we want are not the things that are best for us in the long run. Trusting God in disappointment involves letting go of our own agenda and submitting to His. Even when life doesn't make sense, we can trust that God is still in control and that He will bring about good in all things. Rejection and disappointment don't mean we are unloved or forsaken. They are opportunities for us to trust God's greater plan and purpose for our lives. The hope found in trusting God with our dreams. All of us have dreams, visions of what we hope to accomplish, the life we desire to build, and the legacy we wish to leave behind. These dreams are often connected to our deepest desires and hopes, but they can also bring anxiety, especially when they seem far out of reach. Trusting God with our dreams means surrendering our desires to Him, believing that His plans are greater than anything we could dream up for ourselves. God cares about the desires of our hearts, but trusting Him with our dreams involves allowing Him to shape them according to His will. Sometimes, God may redirect our dreams or take us on unexpected paths, but in doing so, He is fulfilling a greater purpose for our lives. Trusting God with our dreams is about recognizing that He is the giver of all good things, and His plans will always be better than our own. Trusting God with our dreams also means having the faith to pursue them, knowing that He has equipped us with everything we need to fulfill our purpose. Even when the road seems difficult or when others doubt our abilities, we can trust that God has placed these dreams within us for a reason. We can walk forward in faith, knowing that He will open doors, provide resources, and lead us every step of the way. Learning to trust God in the midst of spiritual battles are a reality in the life of a believer. There are times when we feel attacked, discouraged, or weighed down by spiritual opposition. During these moments, trusting God becomes our greatest weapon. In the midst of spiritual warfare, we are called to trust that God has already won the victory and that we can stand firm in His promises. Trusting God in spiritual battles means recognizing that we do not fight alone. God is our protector, our shield, and our fortress. Even when we face difficult challenges or feel overwhelmed by spiritual attacks, we can trust that God is fighting on our behalf. His power is greater than any force that opposes us, and His word is a weapon that will defeat every lie and every attack of the enemy. During these battles, it's important to cling to God's promises. Trusting God means believing that no weapon formed against us will prosper, and that He will always provide a way out of temptation and difficulty. Even in our darkest moments, we can trust that God's light will always overcome the darkness. The joy of trusting God with our burdens. Life brings its share of burdens, and we are often tempted to carry them ourselves. Whether it's worries about our health, our family, our work, or our future, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the weight of it all. But God invites us to lay our burdens at His feet and trust that He will take care of them for us. Trusting God with our burdens means acknowledging that we were never meant to carry them alone. He invites us to cast all our cares on Him because He cares for us. When we trust God with our burdens, we find rest for our souls. We release the weight of our worries and exchange them for His peace. Trusting God with our burdens doesn't mean that our problems will disappear, but it means that we no longer have to carry the load ourselves. It means that we can rely on His strength to sustain us and His wisdom to guide us. As we trust Him with our struggles, we experience the freedom that comes from knowing that God is carrying us through. Trusting God in every season of life comes with its own challenges, joys, and lessons. Whether we are in a season of waiting, growth, struggle, or celebration, we are called to trust God in each and every one of them. Trusting God in every season means surrendering our expectations and embracing His perfect timing. In times of abundance, we trust that God is the source of every good gift. In times of scarcity, we trust that He will provide. In times of joy, we trust that He is the giver of our blessings, and in times of sorrow, we trust that He will comfort us. No matter the season, trusting God is a constant act of faith, believing that He is always at work, shaping us for His glory. Living out trust every day. Trusting God is not just a one-time decision, it's a daily choice. Every day, we are faced with opportunities to either trust God or rely on our own understanding. The more we choose to trust Him, the more our faith grows. It's in the daily decisions, the daily moments, where trust becomes a lifestyle. Trusting God involves acknowledging His sovereignty in every aspect of our lives, from our work to our relationships to our goals. It means leaning into His understanding rather than our own. It means choosing to believe that He is working things together for our good, even when we don't see it. As we practice trust, we begin to see the fruit of it in our lives. We experience peace, joy, and strength even in the most difficult circumstances. We begin to live with the assurance that God is in control and that His perfect plan is unfolding before us, one step at a time. Trusting beyond what we see as we close this reflection, it's important to remember that trust in God is about believing in His promises even when we don't see immediate results. It's about walking by faith, not by sight. Our circumstances may not always reflect the truth of what God is doing behind the scenes, but that doesn't change the fact that He is at work. Trusting God is a lifelong journey, one that requires continual surrender and faith. It's not always easy, but it is always worth it. As we walk by faith and trust in His perfect timing, we are aligned with God's will, and we can be assured that He is working all things together for our good. Even when we can't see the whole picture, we can rest in the truth that God sees it all, and He will never lead us astray. His ways are always perfect, and He is faithful to lead us into the future He has prepared for us. Trusting God through the storms of life is not always a smooth journey. There are times when storms of life come unexpectedly, shaking us to our core. These storms can come in many forms: personal loss, financial hardship, health struggles, or the weight of overwhelming circumstances. In these moments, it can feel as if everything is falling apart and the future looks uncertain. But it's in these very storms that we are invited to trust God more deeply. When the winds of life blow fiercely and the waves threaten to overtake us, it's easy to become afraid, to doubt, and to question if God is truly with us. Yet, it is during these storms that God's presence becomes even more real. Trusting God in the storm doesn't mean that the storm will immediately stop. Instead, it means trusting that He is with us in the storm and that He will give us the strength to endure. In these times, we learn that God is our refuge and our strength. He is our safe place, even when the world around us is unstable. It's through trusting Him in the midst of the storm that we experience His peace that transcends understanding. God doesn't promise a life free of storms, but He promises to walk with us through every single one. The storm may seem intense, but it is not without purpose. God uses the storm to refine us, to build our character, and to teach us to rely on Him. In the midst of the storm, we are being shaped into the people God created us to be. When we look back, we often realize that the storms were necessary for our growth, as they revealed a deeper trust in God's ability to carry us through. The beauty of unanswered prayer is one of the most difficult aspects of trusting God is when we pray earnestly for something and feel as though our prayers go unanswered. We may pray for a breakthrough, for healing, for direction, or for restoration, and yet the response seems silent. In these moments, it can be challenging to continue trusting when the answers seem so far away. However, unanswered prayers are not necessarily a sign that God is ignoring us. Sometimes, God's silence is part of His bigger plan. He knows the full picture, and He is working things out in ways we cannot see. What may appear to be a no or wait could actually be God protecting us from something that we don't yet understand. Unanswered prayers also teach us something powerful about trust, that our relationship with God is not based on what we receive, but on who He is. Trusting God means we choose to worship Him, not because of what He gives us, but because He is good, faithful, and loving. Our faith is not built on the outcome of our prayers, but on the constant, unchanging nature of God Himself. Sometimes, unanswered prayers are a way for God to lead us into something better than what we originally asked for. We may look back and realize that His plan was better than our own, and His timing was perfect. In the silence, God is still at work, and we can trust that He is doing something far greater than we could ever imagine. The freedom found in trusting God completely, one of the most profound gifts of trusting God completely, is the freedom it brings. When we release our grip on the things we try to control and trust that God has a perfect plan for our lives, we experience a deep sense of freedom. Freedom comes from the realization that we don't have to figure everything out on our own. In a world that demands control and self-reliance, trusting God can feel like a radical act of surrender. But in that surrender, we find rest for our souls. We no longer have to carry the weight of worry, fear, or the pressure of our own plans. Instead, we can rest in the knowledge that God is in control and that He will never lead us astray. This kind of trust is not passive, it's an active decision to lay down our need for certainty and embrace the unknown with faith. It's a choice to trust that God will take care of us, even when we can't see the way ahead. When we trust God completely, we let go of the burden of control and allow Him to guide us into the life He has planned for us. Trusting God in this way is liberating because it frees us from the fear of failure. It reminds us that we are not defined by our mistakes or setbacks, but by God's love and grace. We are free to step into the unknown, knowing that He will lead us, protect us, and equip us for every step along the way. Trusting God with our relationships, whether with family, friends, or partners, are a vital part of our lives, and they often require trust to thrive. However, there are times when relationships become strained, when misunderstandings arise, or when we experience hurt or betrayal. During these times, we may struggle to trust not only others but also God. It's difficult to trust in God's plan when it feels like the people we love are causing pain or disappointment. Yet, trusting God with our relationships means surrendering them to Him and allowing Him to work in them, even when things seem broken or uncertain. When we trust God with our relationships, we allow Him to guide us in how we love others, how we forgive, and how we seek healing and reconciliation. Sometimes, God asks us to love others in difficult circumstances, to forgive when it seems impossible, or to extend grace when we feel hurt. This can be one of the hardest areas in which to trust God, but it is also where we experience the deepest growth. Trusting God with our relationships means allowing Him to teach us how to love like He does. It means recognizing that He can heal wounds, mend brokenness, and restore what has been lost. When we trust God in our relationships, we can release the burden of trying to fix everything ourselves. We can trust that He is working in the hearts of those around us, just as He is working in ours. Trusting God in our relationships doesn't mean we'll never face difficulties, but it means that we can approach our relationships with peace, knowing that God is in control. The courage to move forward and trust. As we continue to trust God, we are often faced with moments where we must take bold steps of faith. These steps may involve moving into new seasons, making major decisions, or stepping out of our comfort zones. It's in these moments that trusting God requires courage. Courage doesn't mean the absence of fear, it means trusting God even when fear is present. When God calls us to move forward, we must have the courage to obey, even when the path is unclear or the risks feel great. Trusting God often requires us to take leaps of faith, to walk into the unknown with the assurance that He will be there to guide us. Sometimes, The hardest part of trusting God is the fear of failure, rejection, or the unknown. But in these moments, we must remember that God is with us. He goes before us, prepares the way, and equips us for the journey ahead. The courage to move forward comes not from our own strength, but from the confidence that God is with us, and that He will never lead us into something that He has not already prepared us for. As we step out in faith, we grow stronger. With each act of courage, we learn to trust God more deeply, knowing that He will never fail us. Resting in God's provision. Trusting God also means trusting in His provision. We often worry about whether we have enough money, enough time, enough resources, or enough strength. We may fear that we won't have what we need when we need it. But trusting God with our provision means believing that He will always provide what we need. God knows our needs before we even ask. He is our provider, and He promises to give us everything we need to fulfill the purpose He has for our lives. Sometimes, His provision doesn't come in the way we expect, but it always comes in the right time. Trusting God with our provision means believing that He will take care of us, even when we can't see the solution. Resting in God's provision frees us from the constant worry about the future. It allows us to trust that He is already ahead of us, preparing the way and providing what we need to walk through life. We can rest in the knowledge that, no matter what happens, God will always provide. As we reflect on the nature of trust, we are reminded that trusting God is not a one-time event but an ongoing process. It's a daily commitment to rely on Him, surrender to His will, and believe that He is always working for our good. No matter where we are in life, we can trust that God is faithful and His plans for us are good. Trusting God brings peace, freedom, strength, and joy, even in the most difficult seasons of life. As we trust Him with every area of our lives, we align ourselves with His perfect plan and experience the fullness of His presence. He is our rock, our refuge, and our constant guide. And as we walk forward in trust, we can be assured that He will never leave us or forsake us.